Now then, how's it going? Are you okay at the moment? Just seems to be that the Brexit just doesn't seem to want to be running. I don't know about you, but it just, as far as I'm concerned, the Brexit is not taking place. So we've got International Trade Secretary and Brexiteer Liam Fox has claimed that there is now just a 50% chance of Britain leaving the EU if Theresa May's deal is rejected. Speaking in the Sunday Times, Fox said that the voting for the Prime Minister's Brexit plan was the only way to be 100% certain that the UK will leave the EU. He added, if we were not to vote for that, I'm not sure I would give it much more than 50-50. And he's right, really, considering. I mean, Brexit was meant to be Brexit. What did they say? We will go by the people's decision. But they thought that the people would vote to stay in. They didn't think that they would vote to leave. That's obviously what they believed. They believed that people would vote to stay in and that there would be an overriding majority of people that would vote to stay in. It didn't work though, did it? We voted to leave. And did they stick to the plan that they said that they would do? They would give us the referendum, they would leave? No, because obviously we're still spending 2 years later with one of the leading candidates for the Stay campaign being the Prime Minister of the country. Yeah. See, they know exactly what they're doing. They know that people will want to leave, and they'll know that people said that, this is what you promised. But obviously, promises are not the government's strong point. In fact, promises have never ever been the British government's strong point. Ever. In all of my life alive, they haven't actually fulfilled one of the things that they promised. They just do it to line their own pockets. The disgraced former Defence Secretary also claimed that it was a matter of honour for MPs to back the Prime Minister in the House of Commons. Failure to do so, he said, would be incendiary. So we're talking about... Who are we talking about? Liam Fox. Brexiteer is disgraced. And notice how they call it disgraced former Defence Secretary. They like to humiliate people. We talk about the disgraced Sunday Times and the disgraced News of the World. I mean, heck, I'm pretty sure the Sunday Times got involved, didn't they, at some point in the phone scandal scam, where some girl died a few years ago on Piers Morgan in the News of the World. But that wasn't spoken about. No, why? Because they're criminals, and those criminals are allowed to get away with what they do, because the criminals that are letting them get away with them are even more powerful than the criminals that have committed the crime. Fox also warned that there would be unknowable consequences if Parliament votes against the Brexit plan, again claiming that trust in politics would be eroded. Well, I can tell you for a start, there'll be civil war. There will be civil war. That's already on the cards. And every member of Parliament will be taken out and publicly executed. That is already on the cards. The powers that be don't think that what's going to happen is coming to pass. It's going to come to pass. Parliament cannot now, with any honour, renege on that result. Were they to do so, I think you would shatter the bond of trust between the electorate and Parliament. And I think that would put us into unprecedented territory with unknowable consequences. Well, yeah, that would do. It would definitely, verily, put the government in a place of distrust. And I know from the few hundred people that I know that are disgruntled with what's going on, that, I've heard among the grapevine that if this doesn't go ahead, then all the local MPs in the area which I live will be found chopped up in dustbins. that's only what I've been told by people that I speak to. They're really, really at the point of no return. And some of these people have been in jail and spent a long time in jail. So they're used to the whole prison experience. All it takes is one man to assassinate the Prime Minister based upon us not leaving the EU when they promised that they would leave. And there's going to be no amount of aggravation that hits the fan. No amount. People won't care less. We're getting to the point where we're so pissed off with this that people are literally just taking the matters into their own hands. I mean, we've got this thing going on in Parliament at the moment with the anti-Semitism in the Labour government, because they've got to take the concentration off themselves. Why? Because if people start to look into why things are going on so badly, well, they'll start to look at the Jews, and we all know that the Jews rule the world anyhow, don't we? So let me continue with this. Responding to Fox's comments, Best for Britain champion Layla Moran, MP, said, Brexit not happening isn't 50-50 as Liam Fox says. It's actually 56-44. What a load of crap. Don't make no difference. That's the way the public now feels about us stopping this badly led disaster and strengthening ourselves within the EU. No, that's not actually true. The only reason why people are so sick and tired of it is because you didn't want to give us what we wanted in the first place. So, those of us that decided that we didn't want to be part of the EU to begin with, we voted against it. Well, I know a couple of friends of mine who are self-employed, and they refused to abide by EU law. And whilst we're in this leaving process, they are breaking EU law left, right and centre. Now, one of our friends has been approached by the police, and he said basically to the police, whilst we're in discussions regarding Brexit, and it was already decided and voted upon by the UK populace that Brexit is Brexit, that we want to leave. The majority of the people voted against staying in the European Union. That means by majority vote, it's all things are decided. He says, he said to the police officer, I don't need to abide by EU law, because as far as we're concerned, the government made the vote. And the majority vote was that we leave. So therefore, I have no allegiance to the EU anymore. And the police officer said, well, you can't do that. 3 of the guys at the place of work wrapped a steel bar around the police officer's head. That police officer is no longer actually working at the moment because he's in hospital with getting his brain put back together again. You see, the people have decided. Whether the government does anything about it is irrelevant. The people have decided, and if they want their government to be supported by the people, well, then they best pull their fingers out their asses and the dicks out of little boys' backsides and do something about it. And stop eating babies and sacrificing children and giving people an excuse to want to kill them. Because that's just seems to be how it is. The government decides, we're going to go against the people's wishes and we're going to do what we like. Okay then. Don't expect the people to go along with the laws of the land, and expect them to do as they like as well. Because that's what's happening. So the only thing that is shattering the bond of trust between electorate and Parliament is the refusal of ministers like Liam Fox to trust people with the final say on Brexit. He was a Brexiteer. He wants to leave. The only thing that is shattering the bond of trust between electorate and Parliament is the refusal of ministers like Liam Fox. How does that work? Why are they attacking Liam Fox if he's a Brexiteer? He wants to leave. How is attacking a Brexiteer and he gonna help? Well, so here's another one. Understanding this one is W2TF is actually going on with Brexit then. Because right now, it feels like a big old game of deal or no deal, minus the good cheer of Noel Edmonds. I haven't exactly counted, but since the United Kingdom voted with a 52% majority back in June of 2016 that it wanted to exit the European Union, the word Brexit has been uttered approximately 6,371,604 times every day. It's on people's minds, and it's certainly on their lips. But despite the government having been in negotiation with the EU for literally years now about how the whole thing is going to play out, it still doesn't seem as if there's a clear-cut plan of action. And well, that's basically because there isn't. If you're just as confused about Brexit as you are about whether Jack and Danny have actually split up, read on. Officially on March the 29th, 2019. That's because Theresa May triggered the process of UK leaving the EU by invoking Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty on 29th of March 2017. The treaty sets out that when a country triggers Article 50, they have 2 years to negotiate and agree the terms upon which they will leave the EU, which means at 11 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March 2019, we'll technically have left. There we go again with all this nonsense. Everything that wants to come up and bug the crap out of you. So then, basically, we'll have left with absolutely nothing. Nothing. All these years we've been looking after Europe and giving them money and helping them sort out the crap that George Soros has flipping done by going in and starting wars and whatnot. That'll all be gone. Completely gone. So what we meant to do about it? So how do we continue? From then on, if we have agreed deal, we'll be in a transition period where we'll continue to follow EU rules without having any say in what they are. This will last from 29th of March 20... Excuse me. Hey, fucking spiders, there's racket going on in the background. From then on, if we agreed a deal, we'll be in transition period where we'll continue to follow EU rules without having any say in what they are. This will last from 29th of March 2019 to 31st of December 2020, just under 2 years, and is intended to give Britain time to implement our own new rules, trade deals and more. So basically, it's a long old process. No, it's not. Why do we need to strike a deal before we leave the EU? You'll have heard of talk of deals and no deals a lot lately, but sadly none of it was in reference to Noel Edmonds' fronted game show offering you the chance to win thousands. The aim is to have an agreed deal on the table with the EU by the time the 29th of March rolls around, which will lay out the exact terms under which we will depart from the Union. If we leave without a deal, we won't be allowed the aforementioned transition period, and that's quite an important one because it's necessary time frame in which we can sort our proverbial shit out. Well, Theresa May was a EU stay. She wanted to stay within the EU. Theresa May has tried within her power to make this Brexit process as painful and as stressful to the UK people as much as possible. Like I was saying about my friend who's self-employed, he refuses to stand by EU laws, and he won't. He doesn't stand by EU laws. He breaks pretty much every EU law that there is, because as far as we're concerned, that he's making his own deals. He's making his own trade agreements. He's not fussed about what England's doing, because England doesn't care about the populace. Right, so if we don't negotiate a deal, the existing trade agreement we've got with the EU will cease immediately, meaning we'll be subject to the EU's external tariffs and things like food and drink will get a lot more expensive, quickly. Planes could be grounded if we haven't pre-agreed any rules, because airlines would be required to seek individual permission from each of the 27 EU states in order to operate there. Yeah, well, European Union, I'd have to ask for British flipping authority to fly the planes over our country. But I'm pretty damn well sure you don't get our permission to fly your plane over the country and we blow it out the sky. Well, sorry, you didn't ask for our permission. An act of war, so what? We're used to wars. I mean, Rothschild stuck us into a First and Second World War, and he was the guy who run the flipping country when it comes to flipping money. So we won't be able to leave the country. Anybody ever thought about starting their own militia group? And shall we go to war with Europe again? You know. To put it bluntly, arriving 29th of March without a deal would be completely and utterly chaotic whether you fall on the side of leave or remain. What deal has been decided so far? After a hell of a lot of talk of back and forth, on 16th of November, Theresa May announced she had reached a draft Brexit agreement with the EU. The deal wasn't exactly concise. It was 585 pages long, but these are some of the key points it sets out. There would be a transition period lasting almost 2 years as described above, giving the UK time to work out a new trade agreement with the EU. Well, that's great, we've just had 2 years to work that frigging thing out. 2 years. Wouldn't it be surprising if we was to start grabbing flipping ministers of parliament and holding them hostage? You know, I know we don't talk with terrorists and we don't negotiate with terrorists. I don't know. Maybe that might be something in order to think about. Kidnapping one of the members of parliament, a very high-ranking member. Let's say a member of the European Parliament. Let's say maybe even a member who is a multi-billionaire member. You know, just sticking him in a box somewhere in the middle of nowhere and keeping him under wraps until, I don't know, maybe for instance the company the UK PLC is forced into, I don't know, doing something. I don't know. I'm not really a kidnapper, so obviously I haven't thought about this, and I haven't really thought very much about it. I'm just a thought, an idea, but you know, I'm good for ideas. Maybe not very good for putting those ideas into practice, like, but you know, I'm good for ideas. People come to me for ideas and whatnot, you know, and other different ways of thinking of things. I have a different way of looking at things. I can see through the rubbish for what it is. So the UK would have to pay what is effectively a divorce bill to leave the EU. A specific figure wasn't included in the draft agreement document, but it's expected to be at least 39 billion paid back over several years. Well, since we've been giving them 55 billion a week anyhow, or 55 million a day, whatever it works out, you know, that's quite a lot of money. The UK citizens in the EU and the EU citizens in the UK would retain their rights to residency and social security after Brexit. No firm guidance was included for people who live in one EU country and work across the border in another, living in eastern France and working in Geneva, Switzerland, though as they would only have the right to reside in the specific country where they live. There would be no hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, meaning no physical border. Instead, Northern Ireland will be subject to a backstop if no long-term trade deal is agreed between the EU and the UK by the end of the transition period. Here's a thought for you. What happens if people was just start going executing members of parliament? Just thinning the parliamentary cabinet down, taking them all down. You know, just removing them. How do we remove them? I don't know. Give them a virus, give them a disease, give them something that kills them really quickly. I mean, I suppose it's a wrong way of looking at things, but really, when all's said and done, force has only respected force, and it's only through force that we get anything done. I mean, you can ask all day long, and you can protest all day long, but if they aren't going to do anything about it, they're not going to do anything about it, and protesting all day long is not going to do any good whatsoever. Now, if we take it via force, and we start smashing them all in and putting them all in hospital and taking them all out of the equation so that they can't do their jobs anymore, well, you know, it's going to get rather dark and dangerous and painful and destructive. Maybe that might be an idea. It might be just an idea for us, the public, to just, we've had enough of this crap, let's just go take them out and shoot them all. It's against the law. You're not allowed to do this to us. Oh well, never mind. Never mind. We'll take the consequences of the actions, because letting you represent us, knowing that you actually don't represent us in any way, shape, or form, is evidence of what you're doing. Because you're just going getting away with doing whatever you want to do, not representing us at all. Not at all. So anyhow, if you enjoyed this video, please click the bell, leave a like and subscribe, and if you're interested in any subjects being talked about, give me a shout and I'll do this, and I'll do the video. So anyhow, yeah, I'm gonna quit the record at the moment, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.